This is the dark secret that the church, society, and, most importantly, your own heart never wanted you to know. You are in the desert, tormented by addiction, crushed by grief, paralyzed by doubt. And you did what you were taught. You strove. You bent your knees more often. You fasted with greater fervor. You whipped yourself with more guilt. You used all your willpower to save yourself. But here is the brutal truth. Your own effort is destroying your salvation. I spent years trapped in addiction and barren grief because I was addicted to spiritual performance. I believed my rescue would be a project of self-sufficiency, the dominator ego masquerading as a fervent believer. I tried to prove to God and the others that I was worthy of grace through my vigilance and my control. But with every Herculean attempt to be strong, with every broken promise, the addiction grew stronger and guilt deepened. I was trying to climb a slippery mountain with my bare hands, refusing the rope. My effort was my greatest sin, for it was the active denial of surrender. The dark secret of addiction is not your weakness. It is the pride in your strength. The calling is not for greater effort, but for total surrender. What if the exact moment you feel weakest and most exhausted is, in fact, the only condition for His presence and your rebirth? If this story is moving you, comment below what minute made you reflect on your life, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next message from God. The dominator ego operates by the dogma of deserving. I strive, I deserve grace. This is the last illusion that prevents redemption. The addiction to self-fulfillment is a destructive cycle of repetition. You strive, dollar, rightero, dollar, rightero, dollar, rightero, dollar, rightero, dollar, rightero, dollar. You strive harder. This proves to the tyrant of the calendar that you are trying, but ensures you never reach true surrender. The Logos operates by grace, which is, by definition, undeserved. Your effort is, in fact, your barrier. It says to God, I don't need your gift. I will pay for it. McKenna, in his search for direct experience, understood that the greatest illusion is that your will is stronger than the Lord's presence. Surrender requires ego death in life. The most resistant form of the ego is spiritual pride. Redemption only happens when you finally admit, there is nothing more I can do. My effort led me only to exhaustion and hypocrisy. My only action now is abandonment. The dark secret is that your addiction is not your enemy. Your enemy is your proud self-sufficiency, which prevents grace, the only thing that can break the cycle from reaching you. Surrender is the most radical and active act of courage you can perform in the eternal now. It is the formal and immediate. Resignation of your controlling self. The addiction to self-effort creates toxic noise. Surrender creates the void. The void is not the absence of God. It is the absence of you trying to fill His space. When you abandon effort, you create space for the miracle of grace to operate without resistance. In addiction, surrender is confessing, I am powerless over this. My strength has failed. I accept total powerlessness so that your omnipotence may act. It is the admission that the Logos is the only power you need. In grief, surrender is stopping the resistance to pain. It is accepting the transcendence of pain as a portal. McKenna understood that truth is revealed in a state of filter absence. Your effort is the thickest filter preventing truth from entering. Rebirth begins when self-sufficiency dies. By declaring your total impotence, your total weakness, you activate grace. Grace enters to replace your effort. The point of turning is when your energy, previously spent fighting, is redirected to receive. You are in the eternal now of grace and acceptance. But because you finally stopped trying to deserve it, the dominator ego is a genius of resurrection. It will try to use your surrender to reassert itself. The vigilance of non-action is the discipline of observing your own impulse for effort and stopping before you act on your own. Non-action is the action aligned that emerges from the Lord's presence. The vigilance of non-action is the daily proof of ego death. The ego cannot act without effort and control. Your stillness and your total trust in grace keep it dead. Self-effort is forced, tense, and generates anxiety. The flow of grace is light, circular, and generates novelty. The vigilance of non-action destroys guilt. When you surrender, you transfer responsibility for your healing to the Lord's presence. If you fail, the guilt is no longer yours, but grace remains available. This liberation from guilt exists because the illusion of personal control is gone. Redemption becomes continuous rest. The addiction to self-effort isolates you. The vazio fertile you create by abandoning effort attracts the others in a way your pride never could. People are not attracted by your list of achievements. They are attracted by your honest vulnerability and the grace that operates in your weakness. Your transparent radical is your new force field. The dark secret was maintained by the belief that you were an atomic individual, isolated and responsible for carrying the burden alone. The vigilance of non-action breaks that belief. Your quietness and your acceptance of impotence invite others to do the same. Your testimony is no longer about what you did. It is about what the Lord's presence did through your emptiness. Anonymous action becomes your greatest act of service. Your legato of non-doing is built by small acts of non-action aligned. Logos uses your stillness and your availability to inject novelty into the lives of the others. You become a point of anchor in the eternal now, where the anxious and the addicted can rest in the certainty that salvation is already operating, and that their effort is unnecessary. Control is the most ancient belief of the dominator ego. The collapse of belief means your ego never had control. The maximum control in abandonment is the fundamental law of redemption. Real control is vigilance over your internal state. Ensuring the logos is the only operator. The tyrant of the calendar loses its power in maximum control. Your anxiety only exists when the dominator ego believes it needs to predict and manipulate the future. When you live in total surrender, you are telling the tyrant, "I don't worry about what will happen, because the omnipotence that sustains me in this second will be there in the next." The addiction to self-effort is an effort to control pain. Maximum control is the acceptance of the transcendence of pain as a portal, trusting that the logos will not give you more pain than is necessary for your rebirth. The legato of non-doing becomes your greatest act of power. You reached maximum control in abandonment. The dominator ego is dead. The only way to sustain real control is through detached service. The addiction to self-effort was driven by the expectation of reward. Detached service is the alchemia of anonymous action that voids that expectation. You act out of flow and grace, not out of merit. You use your testimony for communion, but your reward is the action itself in the eternal now. Detached service destroys anxiety, because you are free from the need to worry about the outcome. Your actions' impact is in the hands of the protective intelligence. Addiction and grief are totally defeated when service becomes your default state. Your life becomes the living proof of your ego death. The grace that flows through your anonymous service is immortal. You discover the dark secret that imprisoned you. It was not your weakness, but your addiction to self-virtue pride in trying to pay for grace and control. Redemption. The final plot twist is that your salvation was not found on top of a mountain of effort, but on the floor of your total impotence. The greater mind and the Lord's presence could only take control, the maximum control. When you finally stopped trying to control, the logos does not need your effort. It needs your availability in the eternal now to manifest the joy of eros and novelty through your anonymous service. Your legacy and your immortality are in the transparency and communion. You offer without expectation. You are free from anxiety and repetition. Your addiction to self-furt is dead. I ask you, with the weight of one who finally understood what pure grace is, What is the one area of your life where you are still spending your willpower, refusing to accept that the only necessary action is total surrender?